It's 2016, and I hope you've chosen this year not to treat your clients like one particular airline. Find out who right after this. You're listening to Idea Charger Radio. Hey there, Success Chargers, and welcome to 2016. I hope you had a fantastic little break. Little time off, got together with your friends, your family, your loved ones. Here's the deal. I contemplated whether or not I was going to come back and get right at it. And you know what? I owe that to you because I promised you first, each and every week I'd be here. But second, I got to set a good example. Crazy thing is, I'm going to set it this week by sharing with you something that happened on my vacation, or should I say en route to my vacation. So, look, I stepped aside in the airport because I always travel with a digital recorder and just sort of recorded what had happened the other morning. Let me let you hear that now and we'll talk about it on the other side. So here's the scoop. You know, just a couple of days after Christmas, and I really didn't know this was going to be a bananas kind of a day, but apparently there's been some bad weather in the area here in Texas, and caused all kinds of jam-ups. Here's the lowdown, though. This morning, my family and I got up about 4:15, drove to the airport, right? Me and my wife and our 3-year-old daughter. We got to the airport just in time to plenty of time. You know, I've flown, I don't know how many times out of Intercontinental Airport. We got here this morning. It literally took us nearly an hour to just drop off one bag and a car seat. Yeah, we were already checked in, the whole deal. Took a little over an hour. By then, they wouldn't let us board the flight we had bought tickets for. So we had to get in another line where we waited about 40 minutes only to get right up to our turn to have the agent turn and walk away because it was time for her 20-minute break. Didn't talk to us, didn't make eye contact, just turned and walked away. And a couple of minutes later, we got the same thing from the kiosk right next to us. The agent just turned and walked away and didn't say a word, leaving everyone in line, who'd been there for an hour and a half, looking at each other to ask one question. What just happened? So here we are, standing in line. I've already been yelled at by one person who was trying to share information with people that were walking into the airport, but ignoring those of us that had already been in line for 45 minutes. And when I tried to get her attention, I got chewed out. And then she acted like I was the one that had an attitude problem. And she goes, "We're not going there." And I said, "You're right, we're not." Because I just don't have time for that kind of crap. And so we stood in line, took care of things. Ultimately, though, found one of the most amazing agents I've ever worked with at United. You guys know that I've written about a really great flight attendant from United before. I'll put a link to that post in the show notes. My friend Judy McClure, she was fantastic. But I wish I'd caught the woman's name that helped us this morning. She graciously got our reservations changed to another airport in Florida, but actually closer to where we were headed. And we'll be on our way this afternoon. So we're sitting at the airport now, just hanging out. But you know, it was interesting. While standing in line for a cup of coffee once we got through security, which, by the way, because I have pre-check, my whole family was able to get pre-check. After waiting an hour and a half to drop off our bags, we made security. We cleared it in under 5 minutes. Me, my wife, and a toddler, under 5 minutes, and there was a long line at security. So, hey, it's the best $85 for 5 years you'll ever spend. Business travelers, do yourself a favor. Just get the pre-check. Pay the money. $85. Buy your way to the front. Get yourself through security. It'll save yourself a lot of trouble. So we got through. Standing in line for that cup of coffee, though, I ran into a gentleman who worked for one of the airline flight attendant unions. And just a fella, he was traveling with his wife. And we got to chit-chatting, and there was a long line at the coffee stand, too. I said, that seems to be a theme today. He chuckled. He goes, yeah, I guess so, and struck up a conversation. Incredibly nice guy. And we got to chit-chatting, and it became really evident. He understood service. He got it. He's been a flight attendant, he and his wife, for over 30 years. They've traveled all over. In fact, he's traveled so much for work. When they travel for pleasure, they just get in the car and drive somewhere, and I can't blame you. But the interesting thing that we talked about was, there's just one thing, one skill, one word that really summed up what can make customer service better in so many situations like this. And I'm wondering if it's happening to your customers too. You ready for it? It's a word I talk about a lot when I talk to leaders and companies. That word is empathy. You may not feel the anger or the frustration that your customer feels, but empathy can go a really long way. And empathy is just the ability to recognize and acknowledge someone else's emotion. It doesn't matter if you're tired and exhausted. You took the line. Look, the way I look at it, people would look at me and said, well, this agent's been here since 3 a.m. You know what? I'm incredibly gracious about that. That's a long time to be standing there. It was 3.5, 4 hours later. She needed a 20-minute break. I totally get that. And I was willing to be appreciative of that. Had she simply made eye contact and said, you know what, I've been standing here for 4 hours. I have to step away for 20 minutes. But if you'll wait right here, as soon as I get back, I will take care of you and your family. I would have gladly waited. In fact, I did. I stayed in that line for about 15 minutes, and somebody else came along before she got back from a break and offered to help. And that was the amazingly nice young lady that helped us out this morning. She was fantastic. Your customers appreciate you. You may not be able to do anything about their situation or their condition. You may not have any responsibility for the mood or the attitude or the emotion they're feeling by the time they showed up at your doorstep. But what you can do is change their day on a dime by just acknowledging their frustration. A smile, some eye contact, just a look of, what a morning. You know what? I'm going to step away here for just a few minutes, but I'll be right back. If you'll stay right here, me or somebody else. And if that became contagious, and down the line, they were looking out for each other going, you know what? We'll take care of you. Not just I'll be back in 20 minutes, just turn and walk away. Or, like the other agent I saw this morning, just literally turn and walk away without saying a word. Don't be afraid to look your customers in the eye. Let them know you understand how they feel, and give them some comfort to say, you know what? I'm going to help you do whatever I can.
All right, so that's where I left it. Now, I got better. I mean, we did ultimately get to our location, albeit several hours later than we wanted, which created a whole other domino cascade of effects of various things. But, here's the frustrating thing for me. That whole deal, that entire experience, maybe that wouldn't have been any better. Maybe we wouldn't have gotten through to get a bag checked any faster. But let me just run down a few things that really surprised me. Number one, I travel a lot. Now, that doesn't mean, on a heavy travel day, I get that. The weather hadn't been as bad here in Houston, but it was in Dallas. It was in Chicago and a number of other places around the country. So that has a tendency to create some problems. But when I have a ticket, a booked ticket, and I am confirmed on an airline, and my entire family is, and I have pre-check, and I'm a known traveler, and, all this stuff about big data, I don't fly every week, but I fly a lot. And I'd like to think I know what I'm doing when I get to an airport. All I was trying to do was drop a bag and a car seat. That should never, ever take an hour and a half. I used the Airlines provided app to check in online ahead of time. I had purchased pre-check that allows me to go through security. That part worked. There was a long line to get through security. Me, my wife, our 3-year-old, we made it through security start to finish in 5 minutes. Piece of cake. It was just getting to there that was painful. There was nobody directing customers where to go when they walked into the lobby. And this is the part that really got me. In addition to the problem of nobody seeming to have any empathy, which, that's the easiest one. There were 15, maybe 20 stations that were designed to check bags, none of which were on. None of them. They weren't staffed. There were no people. It's not like this was a surprise. Once I got on the other side, I started doing a little research and found out that a lot of people had spent the night in the airport. This wasn't a surprise to anyone who worked for the airline or people at the airport, that there might be a lot of people trying to get in. Now, I know typically they say get to the airport 2 hours in advance, Folks, I'm telling you, that's great. If you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know how this works, that's probably really good advice. But for a seasoned traveler to show up and get thrown into a blender of, okay, there was a single line that went around and around and around and around and around. You know what this line began? In the middle of a corkscrew-shaped line. What? Nobody was directing anybody. There was nothing there. Now, stop and think about your own business. Those of you that say, we need an app. Don't build an app that doesn't make the customer experience any better. You're better off not having an app in the first place. So that's number one. Number two, if you've got a really high volume day, staff up for it. If it's just you, then be aware. Prepare your clients. Communicate with them. Be proactive. There was none of that. Plenty of opportunity for that as well. I have a phone that receives text messages. I have a phone that collects email. I have a phone that, get this, you can make a phone call on. None of those were exercised to give me even an automated indicator that something way beyond normal or usual could be occurring at the airport to where I was headed, that I was already checked in for and had a purchased ticket to fly on. This really surprises me. Now, let's set the system part aside and let's look at the human part. Don't yell at your customers. Just don't. Ever. It just never works out well. Right? This was easily avoidable. You could have easily had somebody there to relieve the folks that you did have by tapping out and saying, I'll step in for you. They could somehow put an indicator up. You know, at the grocery store, when a cash register operator is trying to go on break, they'll turn the light off so you know that, hey, we're closing this line after I get done helping the next customer because I've got to go on break, or we're going to shift you somewhere else. And there would be maybe a supervisor that shows up and says, hey, no problem, we're going to divert you here, divert you there. No, they just let people line up at every line here. And then when it was time for a break, there was no communication. There was no eye contact. They just turned and walked away. I don't get it. I do not understand it. And I really hope that you're not giving your customers this kind of experience when they try to work with you. Don't make it harder for your customers to do work with you. You know, the flight back, let me contrast this. The flight back, we got up early. We drove back to our original airport, which was about 2 hours from where we were staying. We arrived way early for fear of getting caught in another vortex of terrible service like we had in Houston, only to pleasantly arrive and find out there was not one person ahead of us in line. And we were able to check our bags through with no issues at all. In fact, when we went through the pre-check line, there was something logistically that we might have done a little bit different. The TSA officer was like, hey, I'm not going to give you any hassle about it. There's really nobody here, but you might want to be aware of this. And he let me know about a policy about something that if I was traveling with my family again, would make it even easier for us. He wasn't scolding me. He was giving me helpful advice. And I said, you know what? I really appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Because I don't often travel with a group of people. It's typically on my own. And I guess admittedly, I don't always check a bag because perhaps I missed an opportunity. Way too late, someone suggested, maybe you should just check your bag at the curb. That would have helped because I was already checked in for the flight. Maybe. But I'm just not really sure. You know, it was a terribly frustrating experience, and I don't like to complain a lot on this podcast. I just wanted to underscore something about, I want you, as you think about what this year is going to look like, what can you do? I'm going to look at my business the same way. I want you to go, what can you do to improve the customer experience for people that want to do business with you? Are you making it harder by making them comply with your system? Are you making it more difficult by not giving them proactive service and helping them before they really know they need your help? Are you communicating? Do you have empathy for where they're coming from and their condition? That's my advice to you as you think about this year and where you're headed. Oh, and by the way, I did provide feedback to United Airlines when they sent me a request to fill out their customer survey like they do after every single flight, which is ridiculous. Usually I reply with, could you try to be on time again? Ever? Again? You were late? Again. This time, I outlined the events that I've just put in the podcast. I was tweeting during the experience, and I tagged at United, which is their Twitter account. Every single post I made about my travel experience with them, I included their name. Whoever runs the social media for United, you get a big hashtag fail. There was no response. None. Not even a canned, automated apology to say, you know what, we've had some incredibly high volumes and dealing with a lot of issues. We really regret the experience that you had this morning. We're working hard to make sure that doesn't happen again. Somehow they could have phrased that to fit 140 characters or less. But the point is, it fell on deaf ears. I even included in my response this time, in the very last box, the customer survey, I gave them my full name, my email address, my telephone number, and asked them to give me a call, and I would gladly drive to Houston Intercontinental Airport, which is 20 minutes from my house, to visit with anybody they'd like me to visit with about my customer experience. And even that, folks, was met with the sound of crickets. Let's make 2016 a year that you blow the doors off in service. If you work for somebody else, I want you to become known for the person that everybody wants to do business with. You're the one that can solve the problems. You're the one that customers ask for. You're the one people line up in front of to take care of their issues. You're the one that puts out the fires and is known for being a problem solver in a way that disarms people and keeps them coming back to do business with you again. If you work for yourself, be known as somebody that services the hell out of your clients and does it in a way that really makes a difference. Everybody can say they provide customer service in a far superior way. Very few will actually deliver on that fact. We'll be back again next week. We'll see you then. Thanks, Success Chargers.
If you enjoyed what you just heard, please post your 5-star review and subscribe to Success Charger today. Your future is waiting.